Welcome to ACN, the Liberation TV of Ambazonia. Ambazonia Defense Forces, the vanguards of the Ambazonia War of Independence.
Hello, yes.
Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
Well, we are live right now, and it seems as if you want to make a statement.
Yes, we're supposed to go live tomorrow, but I have very little time. So I've been following your outing, and I've been following the intervention of those who have been calling. I would like to make the following very formal statements. Now, we have always been criticized for objecting to what others want to do. And we've been attacked for wanting to be a monolithic system where only the AGOV-C put our policies. And I think one of the things Ambazonians have been missing for the past 4 years is the fact that all what has been put out as a strategy for our liberation has been a comedy, a fantasy, because the set of persons who assumed power in the past 4 years have lacked the level of understanding and preparedness to what awaits Ambazonians. And so they have been experimenting on a daily basis. I don't want Ambazonians to take this intervention or that of others as a blind criticism or opposition to what others present. I am going to make a succinct analysis why a lack of preparedness and careful understanding of what we face has been a disaster to our liberation effort. I read a flyer this morning about an indefinite lockdown, and the first thing I wanted to understand from my advisors, including you, the PS, was first, let's wait and find out why an indefinite lockdown. Maybe there is something that we have missed that will necessitate an indefinite lockdown. And when we put together all the analysis and understanding, we came to the conclusion there was virtually nothing that necessitates, an indefinite lockdown. I've listened to most arguments advanced here, and most of the callers talked about, the suffering being imposed on our people. No, that's not the principal argument. That's a humanistic argument. The argument is that of strategy. Now, I have argued before, our liberation strategy is partly based on guerrilla warfare and conventional warfare. That means the population and activities is critical for the survival of our fighters, for the implementation of our strategy. It is essential. It is the bedrock. The population is the bedrock. I have said repeatedly, Cameroon has less than 13,000 men and women in active combat. That means they cannot hold ground. That means, they can only attack and retreat, which means we can allow them to get into a space and allow them to move out and we reclaim. But the population is critical for the survival of our forces. When you put a lockdown, it must be strategic. It must be short. It must have a specific political objective that you want to achieve, and which afterward is measurable and tangible. And you can say this lockdown achieved the objective of stopping an illegal election organized within the territory of Amazonia. Or this lockdown is designed as solidarity with punitive measures imposed by the regime on a sector of our society. Or this lockdown is based to honor the memory of those who have died or the sacrifices of those in jail. It must be specific. It must be communicated in a way that the population understands, welcomes it, and it must not, it must never undermine the military objective, which is critical for the process of liberation. When you put an indefinite lockdown, this is what you do. You move the population from a bigger space, which are the streets and the entire cities. You put them up in targeted spaces, which are their homes. Where our forces are located is not in some jungle like the FARC in Colombia. Our forces are operating within urban spaces, the proximities with La Republique forces. Our citizens are the first line of defense of our forces. That is not unique to Amazonia. It is a natural phenomenon in any liberation struggle. The population is the first intelligence hub of the forces. When you desert the street, we lose that primary intelligence hub. We lose the secondary, which are isolated spy centers which you create, masking within population. You lose it. So if the forces of La Republique are moving to our base, there is virtually no opposition, no intelligence. They can hit our peripheral forces. They can hit our core forces. Let me tell Ambazonians this. I know I've been at the center of attacks and criticism all through the past 4 years, and it will continue, but I will never regret it. Never. Because all of these people that you've saluted, greeted, embraced, hailed, have retarded our independence for more than 5 years. Majority of them unknowingly. Some of them think they are doing their utmost best because they lack scrutiny. I cannot get up in the morning and simply call a lockdown. I can't. I have to do 24 hours or 48 hours of consultations. The generals must accept. The war council must accept. The political executive must have an understanding. And I have to explain myself to the Amazonian people and define the objective. But when you have people who lack political scrutiny, they get up in the morning, they do whatever they want. When you have people who simply use these political stunts to show to some people that they are the legitimate spokesperson of a war of liberation, and then you have this kind of chaotic decisions that they throw around. They have been throwing them around. They know Ambazonians are gullible. They know Ambazonians are scared. What are the consequences? Le BLM, where Field Marshal was a marshal. Marshal is nowhere to be found. They have been unable to even support that gentleman. Ambazonians, if you know the fate of so many generals that have worked under them, you will cry for your country. Ask them, where is Field Marshal? We are struggling every day now to protect Le BLM. Let me tell you something. They may prevail today, they may prevail tomorrow. They call the last indefinite lockdown. Since they call that last indefinite lockdown, we lost control of the center city of Bamenda by close to 60%. We have been working day and night to regain it. They are bringing another one to confuse the population. They may succeed, but I can assure you people 100%, we will defeat them ultimately. And I want all of you to remain steadfast and speak out. They have prevailed in so many things, but their power and influence is weakening significantly. We will not defeat them only by attacking them. We will defeat them by presenting an alternative model to our people that works. Sometimes when we criticize them, Ambazonians might feel it's just an egg of sea, blind criticism, attacking what is not from them. No. Sometimes I criticize my spokespeople for making public statements. I do that all the time. But if we want to build a sustained democracy, if we want to build a society that is open, we must have open debate on policies. I don't care about individuals. I don't really care about Anu, Sako. No, I don't care about them. I care about the policies, the practicalities. That is what bothers me. Actors come and go. Actors influence policies. They market them. But I care more about policies. What is the benefit of a particular policy in advancing our liberation struggle? We will ultimately end their influence in the Ambazonian struggle. But we will do that by carefully and continuously educating our people, but most importantly, presenting an alternative model that works. We must work hard to help our forces on the ground, to support them, to give them the fighting possibilities. We must never tire down. The day you tire down, they succeed. In most revolutions and liberation struggles, the true nationalists are destroyed, are killed. For those who can easily gain political freedom but lose economic freedom. You must fight against their strategy that works in favor of Cameroon. You must speak out against their experimentation in the face of utmost brutality. La République goes into Mautu and massacres. They go into Metakwata. They massacre. One night after, we attack Metakwata. We attack them there. That is how you pay them back. That is how you pay them back. They attack you. You make sure you punish them in another place. You don't act like a political pundit. You want to call a lockdown indefinitely. 11 February is very close. We are not only thinking of shutting it down. We want to make sure they pay a heavy price in our territory. These are saboteurs. These are spoilers. Ambazonians, stand up. If you don't, remember, for 60 years, you tolerated mediocrity. You excused the Fonchas. You tolerated the Munas. You embraced the John Frundis. All of those mediocre persons who had nothing to offer, those were your heroes. You facilitated and enabled the killing of your own nationalists because you didn't speak out. They shut down your industries. You didn't speak out. They gave you mediocre universities. You didn't rise up. They imposed all sorts of things on you. It has taken you 50-something years to rise up. And then you allow men with no influence, no intuition to mess up with the sacrifices of millions. Stand up, Ambalanders. It is not the ADF's issue. It is not the mountain lions. It is not the Quifons. It is an Ambazonian fight. You must rise up. Bless you.
Thank you, sir. The one and only, the master himself, the strategist, the liberator. You don't talk up. Otu Ayabacho Ekpang. Dr. Ayaba na Ekpang. Dr. Ayaba na the real Ekpang. The real Ekpang. Dr. Ayaba na Ekpang.
My fellow Ambazonian.
Okay, Ambazonian people. My mommy, my pardon. Today, Wednesday, the 27th January 2021 for Ambalan, ground zero. The one at the Bamenda Brigade with some mesam. I papa them no. I will call them Bamenda Brigade. So fly news don't go out for social media. They talk about ghost town. I don't even know when the ghost town need to start. Now we will there for ground zero. Now we the password order. There is no ghost town. Me any mommy, any parent. We too feel na pains. The same as on the feel our pains. Muna go on activities them. For that day they say that I ghost town, I go on activities them. And if anybody disturb una for that day, una get into the Bamenda Brigade to solve una problem. That idea. The Bamenda Brigade is waiting for Isa Bamenda, Mezam. The only ghost town. For now, recognize them. Now Monday. For now, there's no other ghost town till further notice. Mama and my papa them. I beg for everybody. I come out to make this video. I will clarify. I will make una not get no fear. Una get the courage for go out with our activities them. At ground zero, where they so. I no fear no man. Anybody. We go try but disturb or mommy them, or pa them for that day, or sister them, brother them for that day for the say they say with that people talk saying a ghost town. They will be severely punished. So I thanks everybody. Out of the Ambalan. And the Bamenda Brigade is. Shall live the struggle. Long live Ambazonia. Thank you very much.
This is Dr. Ayaba. Yesterday, the National Security Council of the Ambazonian Governing Council met in an enlarged session comprising of the executive of the AGOVC, the executive of the Defense Council, the policy chiefs, and the communication chiefs. We met to review the current trend of events as far as our war of independence is concerned. We took stock of the recent threats to our forces on the ground, the declarations made by Mr. Sako and his communications chief, Mr. Anu. We examine past events. For example, attempted killing of General RK of the British Southern Cameroon Restoration Forces, the kidnapping and disappearance of General Koraman, the conspiracy that led to the death of General Ivo. We took into account the incidents of Bui that led to the assassination of General Nginyam. We took into consideration the statement by Dr. Sako on the whereabouts of the 23 fighters of the Amazonian Defense Forces and sister forces. We looked at their trend in terms of relationship with other movements, the impeachment of Seseko, the building of persistent conspiracies against Seseko. We took into consideration their declaration of war on the Amazonian Defense Forces, the inspiring of tribalism from Lebialem, Bui, and Momo. We took into consideration the fact that they engineer civilian population to attack fighters. We also took into consideration the massive embezzlement of funds, public funds, collected to be directed to arm Amazonians. We took into consideration other secret deals being done with the Swiss HD and the deep involvement of the Swiss HD in some of the activities that they are doing, and how those activities have emboldened the rhetorics of Mr. Sako and Mr. Chris Anu. We also took into cognizance the fact that there are several people working under them who are dissatisfied with all of these things and have been working extremely very hard to see that our forces can work together. We took into consideration the fact that these two men are the greatest problem that their own group face, and that within that group they are reasonable people with whom we can still work to build cohesion on the ground and at the political level. And the National Security Council decided that the declaration of these people as infiltrators and spoilers is consistent with all of the actions that they have been doing. Fellow Amazonians, infiltrators are people planted in particular struggles to cause confusion, to cause in-house fighting for purposes that might be beneficial to them personally or beneficial to the opponent that we are fighting against. I want to remind every Amazonian that I have been in this struggle for more than 30 years, and I have worked with infiltrators before. The first chairperson of the Southern Cameroon National Council, Barrister Ekontang Elat, after we had worked extremely very hard to mobilize our population, and we had reached the moment to enlarge the SCNC and transform it into the Constituent Assembly of Amazonia to declare its independence in 1995. Cameroon used a pastor in Boya to infiltrate the movement and change the trajectory of where we were headed to. Barrister Ekontang abandoned the ship and left the country to the United States for purposes of head brain surgery. That is how the course was thwarted because of a leader who had acted like an infiltrator. It took us many more years. We of the Southern Cameroon's Youth League needed within the council a formidable leader who believed in the argument of force and the force of argument. And we met, myself, Dr. Kwanga was there, late Dr. Yombang, late Chief Ayaba, late Pa Feko. We met in Boya and decided we were going to nominate late Ambassador Epie to take over the leadership. Little did we know that as we were meeting, other politicians were meeting to nominate Ambassador Fossong. And when we met in Boya to get a new leader for the council, the politicians won the day and Ambassador Henry Fossong became the chairperson of the SCNC and took the SCNC, which was the council for Ambazonia then, in the same direction of passivity and wasted time. At the end of the day, he became the president or the leader or the chairperson of the Boya University Parents Faculty Association that increased fees in the university. At that same time, when I opposed that PFA, it was under Ambassador Fossong that I was dismissed from the University of Boya. Fossong could not take the struggle further. We, again, the sacrificial generation, we took the struggle in a different direction. Late Pa Foncha called for a meeting between us and the SCNC to reconcile our differences and present a common program for our liberation. The SCYL went to that meeting with a blueprint for independence that clearly spelled out what we are supposed to do to free our people. The SCNC leadership came with nothing apart from the claim to power and the claim to the right to lead. We split from that meeting and moved our separate ways. We moved in to build the defenses, and that led to the arrest of Dr. Akwanga in March of 1997, the attack in Kumbo, Jakiri, Ye, and other places. From then, I began to live underground as a fugitive with Comrade Wana Benedict, who is now the chairperson of the Ambazonian Defense Council. I moved to Victoria, he moved to Mutengene, and we began on trying to rebuild the scattered forces. Myself and late Justice Ebong drove on a daily basis to Douala at the home of Dr. Yombang to hold meetings to see how we could revive the struggle, take it away from the hands of infiltrators and politicians. We moved from Dr. Yombang's house to the house of Pa Feko in Bonaberi. We held meetings there for a couple of weeks before transferring the meeting to Mutengene in the chambers of Barrister Bruno. We rebuilt the structures and we created a revolutionary council and nominated Justice Ebong as the head, Dr. Yombang as the treasurer. From there, we started planning on how to take Radio Boya to declare independence at the dawn of the new millennium. In June of 1998, myself and the defense chair, we jumped onto a ship at the port of Douala that took us 30 days to escape the country. From Germany, we walked tirelessly to project Ambazonia with demonstrations, meetings across Germany, across Europe. We rebuilt the institutions that had been scattered by people who thought they were entitled to power and who thought, you know, you could fight a Cameroon using the force of argument. While in Germany, we were still working with the ground leadership, and another infiltrator came into the helm of the struggle. That is Ndoki Mukete. He was pushed as the new chairperson of the SCNC. He traveled to Germany. We had a series of meetings. He went back and moved to become the chairperson for FECAFOOT, abandoned the struggle, sold out many ideas that we had worked on. Bringing you this history for you to understand why each time we identify infiltrators, each time we see the same signals and signs that we had seen before, we come across in a very strict manner to oppose them. Let me tell you something. If we fail in this revolution now, and we have to restart it 20 years again. Many of you will oppose most of the things that you are accepting today, because you must have had the experience of living through them and experience of how they ended. It is this experience that informs sometimes the decisions we make. The experience of knowing politicians who infiltrate a struggle to hijack it for their own purpose. Experience of understanding when people do not understand what it will take to free a people. Experience of understanding when leaders do not understand what is at stake and what they need to do. These are the experiences that have guided actions that we have taken, that have informed our judgment. And in deciding yesterday to declare Sako and Chris Anu as infiltrators and spoilers, it is not only based on all of the things that they have done to derail our struggle, to cause infighting, to bring disrepute to our liberation struggle, to attack the integrity of others, to undermine others. Infiltrators do not coexist. Infiltrators want to govern and lead alone, so they can take every struggle in the direction they determine. So they can never be held accountable in terms of how they acquire and use funds. Those are typical characteristics of infiltrators. And they always like to be at the top, because it is from the top that they can derail. Remember, Agwabala navigated his way skillfully to the top to determine the direction. These are classical characteristics you must observe. Some people have claimed the egg of C and myself, we always want it our way, or we want to walk alone. No. The experiences I've given you of more than 30 years did not occur while we were at the top. I serve Barrister Elad. We left Moliko on a daily basis, moved to his home and hoisted the flag. I serve Ambassador Henry Fossum. I serve Justice Ebon. I serve Chief Ayaba. I served John Frundi. I even spent time guarding him in 1992 when he was under house arrest. I stayed there for weeks. So all of these experiences have not been gathered when we were at the top. Even now, we are not still at the top. We consider ourselves as servants, vanguard of this revolution. Because we have been vanguard in the past 30 years when infiltrators captured the helm of our struggle and decided they were going to mortgage it for their own personal gains. Remember Simon Munzu, that was the spokesman of the SCNC, who defended the SCNC. And when an opportunity showed itself for an international position, he changed his direction. They always want to be at the top. They always want to speak for everyone. Coexistence for them is unacceptable, because coexistence means ideas are debated, directions are determined by collective consensus. I want to address this to all forces of the Ambazonian Defense Forces and forces that collaborate with the Ambazonian Defense Forces. We have learned in the past days that Mr. Sako, they have given orders for people to attack you. I have passed instructions to the defense and to our commanders. ADF camps are military zones. No one gets 1 kilometer close to an ADF camp. Not any sister force, not a civilian. Any civilian population engineered to use itself as a weapon against our forces defending the flag and the anthem will be considered as a military force, and our forces will exercise the right to defend themselves. ADF forces on the ground must take every measure wherever they are to protect our population, to defend themselves, and take defensive and offensive action against any threat to their position that undermines them and consequently undermines the defense of our country. At the political level, we will pursue these guys, expose them, banish them from the body politics of our war of independence. In most countries, embezzlers of public funds that undermine the lives of people will be sentenced to death. And this is what these two men, Sako and Chris Anu, they merit. Ambazonians, revelations are coming out every day on their activities. You have not even heard or listened to half of what they have done to harm our revolution. If we were not well armed, La République would have defeated us. We were destroyed before by infiltrators because we couldn't defend ourselves. The only reason they have not succeeded now is because we were wise. From the beginning, we went to arm our people. It has been difficult for La République to defeat us because of those arms. It has been difficult for the infiltrators to defeat us because of those arms. And that's why you must commit to arming the people to defend the freedom, the independence declared and restored. Fellow Ambazonians, infiltration is as old as revolutions. Ours is not unique. It is not trying to undermine others. You have seen what has happened to our collective endeavors. You have seen how soldiers, generals have been kidnapped, they have been killed, they've been blackmailed, their sacrifices undermined for the sole interest of a few. The quest for money, the quest for their own individual survival. They have nothing to lose. They cannot tell you of any of their relations, their friends, or people they know who've lost their lives. If they had one, they would have respected our war of independence. It would have been personal. For them, it is some abstract struggle for independence. For us, it is about our existence. God bless Ambazonia.